Hey, everybody, and welcome back. So, Danielle Smith and UCP are in the news again, and it's never for a good reason. And this time, of course, it's for the voter list, voter registry information that was obtained by the separatist group that's trying to force a referendum on Alberta being able to separate and become independent. There's so much to this, and there's it's the responses from Danielle Smith and her government, the potential blowback, issues with this data breach. There's a lot to it. Like, if any private organization or private company had a data breach, like people's names, first and last names, telephone numbers, addresses, sometimes emails, like, that's information that you give to somebody with the premise that they're going to keep it secure. You don't want that information out there. I know there's other ways to get people's names, phone numbers, address, whatever, but being able to have an entire list of a demographic of people that you can target is a gold mine. Hackers use it, fraudsters use this. This is the stepping stone for potential problems. And like I stated, when you give out your information, you have an assumption that's going to be kept safe and only given to the right people to be used justly that I've given you permission for. Like, for example, Elections Canada or Elections Alberta, to be used by the parties during election time only, canvassing, whatever, so that everybody has an equal opportunity to get to the right people to convince them on which party they should vote for to make your case. This also brings into light that I think it was 300 some thousand signatures that the separatists got. How do we know those are correct? Because in the process of getting signatures, in order to validate you, of course, you need a signature, but you need the information. So just not any Joe Schmo can just sign the name with any name that they want, that there's some sort of validation, address, first and last name, phone numbers, emails, and so on and so forth. They had a list, so they could have falsified most, if not a majority of the signatures that they got. So maybe they didn't make the thresholds. Maybe as there's reports out there that the U.S. and Russia are interfering with this. Now you got the U.S. and Russia potentially having a list or the information from this list that they can target, scam these people here in Alberta. So it's a huge mess, absolutely huge mess. And the responses from Danielle Smith is unbelievable. Let's take a listen to her response when questioned.
Premier Danielle Smith is facing some tough questions again today over Alberta's massive privacy breach. She admits the United Conservative Party caucus staffer attended an online meeting where the Alberta voter list was shown. The depth of the information shared and the apparent potential harm it could create is sending shockwaves all the way to Ottawa. Tim Brooke reports.
On April 16th, UCP caucus Director of Stakeholder Relations Arundeep Sandhu attended this online meeting. In the meeting, participants were shown how to use a digital tool containing the personal information of 3 million Alberta voters.
The Premier has created an office culture where it's either okay to be incompetent and not know that's a problem, or to be so deeply unethical and not care. So, Premier, which is it?
Here, here.
The Premier argues Sandhu had a perfectly good reason to listen to the Centurion Project and to not report the data leak.
The person in question is a caucus staff member who does opposition research. He actually goes to a lot of events. There was no way for him to know that this data was illegal. That was not disclosed in the call.
Sandhu has ignored CTV News calls for comment. His attendance is now being scrutinized inside and outside of Alberta.
Okay. First things first, I understand your staffers go and do research, get information, and so on and so forth. Opposition. I didn't know the separatists were opposition to the UCP. They're your hardcore supporters. So what opposition research are you guys doing in this meeting? That's a whole other question, okay? The main question is, in terms of competence, like as the NDP, the leader was stating, is how does your member, your staffer, not realize the information that he's being shown they shouldn't have? Does he not understand how government works? Does he not understand the voter list, registration, anything? Does he not understand anything? Or is he just plain ignorance? Because that's just an excuse. I didn't know. I didn't know. Imagine telling your boss, I didn't know that some stranger was sitting in an office chair, log it into the computer that I've never seen before in my life. I thought it was just a new employee, and they seem to be taking high detailed information of company secrets. What would you think would happen? You would get fired. Incompetence is not an excuse. Opposition research, you guys, you're part of it. Like, this is who the UCP is. They want this. They want this turmoil. They want everybody to look over here while they destroy and gut the Alberta government and policies like privatizing healthcare, giving the oil companies free reign to do whatever they want. I'm going to do another story on how the oil companies and their wells are being abandoned, more so now, not paying rent to the landowners, allowing toxic gases to be leaked through the wells and affecting the landowners. And then the taxpayers are fitting the bill to clean up all the abandoned wells. So there's a purpose to this. And there's response that Danielle Smith won't make any changes to the Privacy Act when it comes to the voter list until the investigation comes back. You already know there's a problem. Why do you need the investigation or the results of the investigation to come back to make changes? People are pissed. Jason Kennedy is lowering up and going to be suing the Alberta government. Alberta government, elections, Alberta, whoever it is. But he's getting a lawyer because his information was shared. His information was shared during that virtual call that the staffer was at. Again, another thing that he should be going, how do they have his information? How do they have a former premier of Alberta's personal information, address, phone number, and everything else? That didn't ring any bells, put up any red flags. They were a part of this, potentially. They turned a blind eye. They didn't care. Because it furthers their agenda. Meaning, this is another thing too, is why they're not really like going against this separatist movement, the referendum and everything else, is they're placating to this faction. Because if they fought against them, saying, it's beneficial for Alberta to stay, another party would form, or another party would get these voters, and then they would lose the elections, because it's a good portion, not a huge amount of people, but a good portion of the electorate that would no longer vote for the UCP. They would vote for somebody else who was more extreme right than Danielle Smith. And then the NDP would win, or the Liberals would win, or whoever. So she's just doing this to stay in power. Has nothing to do with the well-being of Alberta. She's just playing dirty politics right now. So a lot of people potentially could get harmed by this data leak. Again, there's stories out there about how Russia and the US are potentially influencing this group to cause turmoil here in Canada. And what do you think, especially Russia, what do you think Russia's going to do with a list and information like that? They should all be fired, voted out, my opinion. I can't believe she still has a I don't know after this, though. I'll be honest with you. We got to wait and see what the polling down is going to be after this one. But she has a 46% approval rating. But I think the voters, the Albertan voters, are going to start to wake up that that party is just a bunch of incompetents. No different than what's going on here in Ontario. That the voters here are actually starting to wake up and see what Doug Ford is and who he actually is. That he's not here for the people, hasn't done anything, and buying private jets, spending money for things that we don't need. So this is a big problem for the UCP. It's going to finally catch up to them. And I think the voters are finally going to say, we've had it. You know, we're doing well. Canada's going in the right direction. And placating to this fringe group is only going to hurt Alberta in the long run. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think in the comments. What you feel is going to be, what potentially can happen to people with this data leak. What do you think the government's going to do to change the privacy laws, if anything? Especially you conservatives, like you guys are all about the privacy laws. How you don't want big corporations to have your data that's personal, but it's being released right now. So how do you feel about this? Anyways, guys, take it easy. We'll talk later.